take that question from up
Yeah.
top.
Is there any scientific evidence for a multiverse, or is it just a hypothesis?
Okay, another sciencey question. We're going to have to come back, I think, to maybe Bill or Jeff. Is there evidence for a multiverse that's many universes? We're just one of.
Correct. Is there definitive data that I would say that supports the multiverse, like does support general relativity? No, we're not at that level yet. I do think there are scientifically very good reasons to think that a multiverse might exist. I would refer you to a book I've written called Who's Afraid of the Multiverse? Somebody told me it was a good book. No, I'm joking, but I do think
available
it's a good
downstairs.
book. But what I would say this is, I think there are reasons why a multiverse might exist, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the mechanism God used to bring about some of his purposes. From an apologetics perspective, I think it makes our apologetics stronger because it strengthens the conclusion that the universe or the physical realm began to exist, and it strengthens and makes more robust our teleological or design argument. And so whether a multiverse exists or not, I think it makes the case for the Christian faith even stronger. As for whether it exists, we kind of have to wait and see. If we confirm that inflation actually happened, that would be pretty strong evidence that a multiverse exists.
Bill, I'd just be interested in your perspective on this. I know this has cropped up in some of your debates as well. How do you normally tackle this issue of the multiverse?
What I usually argue is that we don't have independent scientific evidence for the existence of the type of multiverse that is required to explain away the origin of the universe or the fine-tuning of the universe for intelligent life. And that the best hope for believing in a multiverse would be theism. On a naturalistic view, you run into this Boltzmann brain problem that the vast majority of observable worlds in the multiverse would be worlds in which a single brain fluctuates into existence out of the vacuum and observes its otherwise empty world. Those kind of worlds are so much simpler, so much more probable than a world that's finely tuned for embodied interactive observers. So if we were just a random member of a multiverse, naturalistically construed, it would seem that we ought to be Boltzmann brains. So if you believe that you are a real embodied individual surrounded by other embodied individuals with whom you interact, you ought not to believe that you're the random product of a multiverse. So what that would mean is, I think that on naturalism, it's highly improbable that a multiverse of this sort exists, and that if you want to believe in it, it would be theism that would give you grounds for that, namely that God, in his exuberance and generosity and power, has created other universes than this one, and he's designed them to be in certain ways. So I think it's naturalism that's really in trouble through the multiverse hypothesis rather than theism. What do you think about it? Do you think that's right?
Yes.
The idea of a multiverse, many different kinds of universes, innumerable universes, does that bother your theism?
No, it doesn't bother my theism at all. I think that God, as the infinite creator of all space and time, could create separate space-time manifolds or create a universe so vast that there would be different causally unconnected domains within one universe. So once you have an infinite transcendent creator, there's simply no problem with the scope of the space-time world that he brings into being.
How about in quantum mechanics? As you know, there is something called branching or differentiation, where at every Planck time, as they say, there's a branching of or differentiation of the world, so there's infinite numbers of us talking in different ways with very slight differences, and then you have a multiplicity of these quantum mechanical worlds.
That's one way in which theorists have thought to generate a world ensemble of universes, though I think that most quantum physicists would regard this as an extraordinarily implausible interpretation of quantum mechanics.
My question for you is, does that bother your theism, however you generate?
Oh, no, it wouldn't bother my theism at all, because God would still be the one who established the laws of quantum mechanics, who created the quantum vacuum and the space and time, the arena in which all these reactions take place. So, as I say, once you have a transcendent source of all space and time, matter and energy, then he's free to create any sort of physical reality he wants.
Cosmologists talk about a multiverse, innumerable universes. Do you think God created a multiverse?
I must confess, Robert, that I'm very skeptical of this metaphysical hypothesis. I think that if we were just one random member of a world ensemble of worlds or universes, that we would be observing a very different kind of universe than we in fact do.
What would that look like?
It should include all sorts of improbable and absurd events that don't happen, because in an infinite ensemble of worlds, if you can get events so improbable as the fine-tuning of the cosmological constant, the low entropy state, and so forth, then you should also get highly improbable events like a perpetual motion machine and rabbits wearing pink bow ties and so forth, because those are less improbable than the finely tuned constants and quantities.
Well, theoretically, those are occurring in other parts of this world ensemble.
But if,
just not in ours.
well, but if we are just a randomly ordered member of this ensemble, such that the probability is that somewhere these constants would be finely tuned, then things that are even less improbable ought also to be appearing conjointly. And yet we see a rationally ordered universe, and that cries out for some sort of explanation. In addition to that, a much smaller inflationary patch would be sufficient for our existence, rather than the large universe we see. And it is overwhelmingly more probable that if we were just a random member of a world ensemble, we should be observing a much smaller inflationary patch than what we do in fact observe. And I think this is really the Achilles heel in this multiverse hypothesis, that if we were just a member of a multiverse, randomly ordered, then it is overwhelmingly more probable we ought to be seeing a very different kind of universe than the rationally ordered world that we do in fact see.